It's a phenomenon you've probably heard of and you may even have fallen victim to. Cancel culture has been discussed across social media with regard to celebrities and politicians, but it's also a very real part of life for teenagers in schools across the country. In an article titled Tales from the Teenage Cancel Culture, reporters from the New York Times set out to discover what cancel culture is really like for American students. Sanam Yar writes about youth culture and social media for the New York Times. She's one of the authors of that story and joins me now from New York City. Welcome, Sanam. You interviewed a number of students for this story. What did they tell you about what cancel culture is and how it's showing up in their schools?
Right. So I think what myself and my colleague Jonah Bromwich found was there was a really wide spectrum of experiences. It ranged from canceled, meaning like nothing, it was a joke that you would sort of say in passing, to more serious cases where it resulted in kind of like social isolation. And in many ways, this isn't something that's brand new. Bullying has always kind of been existing in schools. But I think the new thing here is, or a different thing here, is that it seems to stem from some sort of perceived moral wrong kind of inciting the canceling.
Is it happening on particular types of campuses, or is this pretty much nationwide at this point?
I think we interviewed people like in middle school, high school, and colleges. It seemed to be, it wasn't really one specific place, but definitely it varied depending on where.
Right. And in fact, in your article, it's a funny moment where you explain that getting canceled is so common now that for many teenagers, it's more of a joke. There was a line at a party where a student says she heard someone say, if you haven't been canceled, you're canceled.
Right,
so
exactly.
Some can see the humor in it, but some of the students you spoke to had a more serious experience with it. Can you tell us about some of their more sobering experiences?
Right. So I think in some of the more serious cases, what we found was that it was a lot of bullying, but via social media. So they would kind of feel like they were being piled on by their peers, multiple peers, through Instagram, TikTok, different mediums. And it just kind of really resulted in social isolation and made them question whether they were a bad person, whether they were a monster in some cases. But that was the most extreme kind of end of the spectrum.
So President Barack Obama actually spoke out against this recently at a summit in Chicago. Let's listen to what he had to say.
But I do get a sense sometimes now among certain young people, and this is accelerated by social media, there is this sense sometimes of the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. And that's enough. Like if I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right or used the wrong verb, or then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself because, man, you see how woke I was? I called you out. You know, that's not activism. That's not bringing about change.
So, you know, there is that argument against cancel culture that you don't have a full spectrum of opinions and ideas at the table, and you don't have a chance to convince people to think differently if you just cancel them, correct?
Right. I think the common sort of criticism against it is that it can sort of create an echo chamber, because if you might not be willing to associate with or listen to the ideas of people who might disagree with you, but that's just one of the criticisms I've seen.
And do you think that this will be more of a fad, or you think it has legs?
I think, well, kind of like I said, canceling is just a new term for a human behavior that sort of always existed. The only different thing here is that it's maybe exacerbated by social media, and also people are willing to speak more about things, about social wrongs that they see. And yeah, I think that does have legs.
Sanam Yar from the New York Times, thank you so much.
Thank you.